Thanks for tuning in to That's What I Call Marketing, the Cannes Sessions. Brought to you by Friedman International, the international campaign experts taking the pain out of your multi-market campaigns. I'm your host, Conor Byrne, and having worked with Friedman International in my previous role as a global marketing leader, I've experienced firsthand their deep level of expertise and attention to detail as the go-to experts for all international campaign needs. Now, let's get right into today's episode of That's What I Call Marketing, the Cannes Sessions. Welcome to That's What I Call Marketing, the Cannes Sessions, brought to you by Friedman International. Of course, this is the podcast where you will hear from the leading lights in the marketing world and listen to their unique insights. Don't forget, please do rate or review this episode wherever you are listening or watching. It is the single thing that gives us the opportunity to reach and build on this amazing community of engaged marketers. And so people who haven't yet heard about That's What I Call Marketing can hear about it from you. If you're interested in getting involved with That's What I Call Marketing, our sponsorship kit is available on our website, that'swhaticallmarketing.com/sponsor. So today we are meeting Mauro Porcini, SVP and Chief Design Officer of PepsiCo, one of the most influential designers in the world. Mauro walked into the press center in Cannes and he just oozed presence. He was dressed impeccably, stylish, but no swagger. He was engaging, charming, and never looked like he needed to be somewhere else or that he wanted to be. In this episode, you will find out about how he has set about building a cohesive, diverse, and purpose-driven team of 370 designers across 17 global locations. That is not easy. So you're going to hear some secrets behind creating a dynamic international team culture. Mauro outlines the core tenets of human-centric design and his vision for a better world. We talk about the power of passion, designing for passion, dealing with the dream killers, as I call them, and finding the co-conspirators to get work done. Little hint, make them commit. And actually, this part is fascinating because there's 5 points that Mauro makes and they're so applicable to any marketing project that you are working on. So definitely tune in to hear those. Of course, we talk about the Pepsi redesign. It obviously has been a huge success, being called Big, Bold and Courageous when it was awarded Best Rebrand at the 2024 Creativity Awards. Mauro Porcini from PepsiCo. Thanks a million for joining me on That's What I Call Marketing. Thrilled to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
I know you were in Ireland last week or a couple of weeks ago.
I was in Ireland last week for an entire week. We went from Dublin to Cork to Kilkenny, and it was wonderful because I used to live in Ireland in 1998. That's where I learned to speak English. Even I have a completely different accent. I don't have the Irish accent.
Better than my Italian. So.
But that's where everything started. It was not just the language. I went there to study design in a language that I didn't know.
Okay.
For an exchange program, but really to learn the language. And what happened instead is that I realized so many things about life, about my country, about the importance of diversity, the importance of changing perspective. That trip changed completely my life.
Really? Wow.
And I often mention this because I had to get out of my comfort zone to take a flight, go there. I didn't have a penny. I was coming from a humble family to support myself. It was a scholarship, so the education was free. But to support myself there, I had to work. And I couldn't even work in a pub or in a restaurant because I didn't speak the language. Okay. So I had to wash dishes in the cafeteria of the school. I had to leave behind my girlfriend back then. I was playing soccer semi-pro. I had to stop that for 1 year. Again, many, many sacrifices that for a kid at that age, I was 23, were major.
Yeah.
And I did it for the language, and then I discovered so much more. So that was a big lesson from that time on. Jump, follow your instinct, try new things. Many times it won't go well, but sometimes it will, and it will change your life.
You have to try these things. And I'm fascinated by your background, and you've talked a lot, and we could spend probably the whole time we have together talking about your family. But I know, I was listening to other things you've talked about, and your parents' role that they played in imparting kind of your ambition, your hard work, and your compassion. It's really I got the sense it really grounded you in some core values.
Yeah, and first of all, I had no clue until many years later. I realized when I got 40, in that age, and it's not about the age. In that time in life, few things happened in my life. They were really tough. I went through a crisis, through a divorce, and that's when I discovered things that my parents gave me 30 years earlier that they were so important. Now I'm a new father. I have a 2 years old. We have another baby arriving in November. Yeah, and I will try everything I can to do what my parents did for me. What did they do? First of all, they told me things by example, by embodying those kind of beliefs and principles. And there were, if I need to synthesize, there were three main principles and values that they really taught me. The first one was the one of being a good person, being kind. And they were never talking about this. They were, for them, being kind, being a good person meant being Catholic. That's their religion. I realized later on that what they were talking about, what they were doing, was transcending completely any religion or lack of religion. Is that kind of value. The second one was the importance of culture. They were in awe for celebrities in televisions that could emanate culture, very eloquent, with a lot of knowledge. So therefore, not for the typical superficial singer, but eventually for professors, from universities. Their dream for me was either they would become a priest, the first value, or that eventually I would become a professor in university because I would spend the rest of my life investing in that knowledge. And then the third value, and that literally they were never talking about, but that's what they were doing, was the passion for something, the passion for what you do. And in my case in life, that passion coincided with my job. I love my job to death. For them, it was not the case. And this is another important message, I think, for many that eventually are not that happy with their work. The first thing is try to change the situation, try to be happy at work. But even if you can't, my father was an architect, but not very successful. Then he was teaching technical drawings in high school, but his passion was painting, and he painted all his life. My mom was working in finance, but she hated it, and she left her job at 38. She retired at 38 to be closer to her kids, but mostly to do what she loved. It was writing. And together they self-published 8 books over the years, literally online, figuring out they're totally not digital natives. They are really, they struggle with cell phones. They don't know how to do it, but they figure out how to build a blog first and then how to self-publish books, 8 books, just for them. And this is really passion for what you do. That is so important, and many people don't have. To close, I know I'm very long in my answers, but to close, they never talked about fame, success, money. I never had that kind of pressure. Eventually I had pressure of learning, but it was not a pressure because it was beautiful, because there was a value. It was something they were aspiring to, and therefore I started to aspire to as well. So this is important. So many times I meet young people that come to me and tell me, what can I do to arrive to where you are? Meaning status or wealth. And gosh, if that's your goal, it's you're doomed. Because even if you arrive there, and very few people arrive to fame and success and what, even if you do, you're going to be miserable if you don't have the real values. What we should teach people today, also through marketing, that's what I call marketing. Marketing is a powerful tool to do that. What we should teach them is the happiness. Your individual happiness and collective happiness of society is the most important thing ever. And therefore, you need to respect your planet. You need to respect people different from you. I mean, anything comes from this idea of happiness and love for each other.
Yeah, like if we start with the outcome, we may never get there. And also, I think sometimes we forget that we're not going to be here. And so all those things ultimately don't matter, because no one's going to remember in 100 years. I don't know if Paul Newman quoted this, but I worked at Barrettstown and they talk about this. It won't matter what car you drove, what house you lived in, but it will matter that you were kind or good to the life of a child in that instance. But like, in the life of people that you impact them in their heart and their soul?
Well, look, I believe in this so much. As you probably know, I wrote a book, The Human Side of Innovation. It's a book about innovation, branding, design, but mostly it's a book about culture, leadership, people. At the end of the book, I talk about how to design happiness.
Yeah.
Because it's really the synthesis of everything else you read in that book. And there are 3 steps. The third one is exactly what you are describing now. Very briefly, the first is invest in yourself, in your identity, define who you are in connection to others. We start to do that already when we are kids.
Yeah.
You know, I have a 2-year-old. You see that she starts to understand, she's trying to figure out who she is comparing to the other kids at school, the parents, the adults. But so we spend our life defining ourselves. Sometimes we make the mistake of following people, celebrities, influencers, and trying to copy them. We should still look at them, be inspired, learn what is positive, reject what is negative, but then synthesize everything in your own unique and different identity. Often we identify that identity with our job. I'm a marketer, I'm a designer, and that's great. You know, if you love what you do so much, for sure, I'm a designer, I'm a PepsiCo designer, but it cannot be just that. Because the moment you lose your job, you lose your identity, you lose your happiness. That's the first. The second, very quickly, is loving others. Is selfless love that you give to people close to you, your family, friends, colleagues at work. You give, and your joy is not just in giving, but is in receiving back. But you don't give to receive back. And the third one, now to connect to what you were saying, is do something bigger than you, transcend yourself. And it seems so selfless and so noble, but even that is about you. What you're doing, you're trying to defeat death. You're trying to become immortal through the memories of people that will remind your kind acts, or maybe, innovation that you did in the world. It could be big, it could be small, but it needs to be something bigger than you. The people will be like, wow, do you remember when that person was alive? How much contribution he gave or she gave to the world.
And it can be in small moments as well. I truly believe that, like just small interactions with people.
Look, if you every day you do one act of kindness to a stranger, you can really change the world. Those people will react, be like, oh my God, why? And then we start to think, and many won't care, but many others will, and then we'll be like, wow. And you will impact their life in a positive way. I'm super active in social media, Instagram, LinkedIn particularly. The amount of people that over the years wrote me because of a post I did, because of an interview I did, because of something I said, you changed my life because I decided to get out of my comfort zone, to try, to open a startup, to do this, to do that. Could be big, could be small, could be professional, could be private. My God, the energy that is giving me, first of all, and the motivation to do more and more and more of that. But also at a certain point, after years of doing that, and then through the book, talking about the power of love in business, in marketing, in design, in life in general, I realized that that's my mission in life. That's my purpose in life. And it's a full circle. My parents wanted me to be a priest because they wanted me to preach this kind of values. And I totally didn't want to. I did my experiences. I had a crazy life. I really enjoy life, really enjoy life. And it's funny how now it's full circle. And my mother sometimes talked to me and is like, you know what, in her perspective of life, that is always the Catholic perspective, she's thinking, you see, God had another plan for you. You're doing exactly what I wanted you to do as a priest, but from a business position with a lot of visibility and access.
Yeah, and that's lovely as well for your mom to have.
I'm happy for her. But look, again, I want to make sure we're not talking about religion here.
Exactly.
We're really talking about the power of love to change the world. The subtitle of the book is The Power of People in Love with People. There are 3 dimensions of love. One is the love for what you do, that we just mentioned. The other one is the love for people surrounding you. Because in this world, beyond the fact that we should just love and that's it, but there is also a business value in it. By loving your colleagues, your partners, your agencies, people around you, you're connecting with them. You're building trust. You're building synergies. You're building teamworks that are really, really powerful. And 1 + 1 is not giving 2, but is giving 10 out of this love and this connection. And the third form of love, that in business probably is one of the most important, is the love for the people you serve. And now, we are in a marketing podcast, right? This is a huge difference between the design world and the marketing world, and the business world then in general, sales, strategy, even worse, is a difference that we need to anyway change, and let me explain what I mean. If you study design at school, they teach you something very simple: to observe people, understand their needs, their wants, fall in love with them, and create the most extraordinary solutions for those needs and wants. It could be a product, a brand, a service, but what drives you as a designer is to create something that creates value in the life of those people.
Right.
A beautiful product, a functional product, sustainable, convenient, depending on the category of products. Then they tell you, by the way, you need also to sell this stuff to them.
Yeah.
There is branding, there is sales, so they teach you marketing, and then they teach you how to make these things: technology, material science, and so on and so forth. So these are the three lenses of design thinking: people, desirability; business, viability; and the world of technology and manufacturing, feasibility. But again, as a designer, your career advances, or you can go to your friends and brag about what you did if you create products that are really cool, that are really meaningful, that are really valuable in the life of people. If you study business, they teach you something different. They teach you to grow a business.
Yeah.
And they tell you have multiple levers. One is called product, one is called communication or promotion, the 4 Ps. You have pricing, you have distribution, you have many levers. So historically, not today, but historically, you could have been very successful with a very mediocre product as a business leader. You have a mediocre product, it is what it is, but you're so good in your advertising, in your marketing, in your pricing strategy, in your distribution, that you can win anyway. That's why we're surrounded, inundated in the mass market by mediocrity, by mediocre products. And many people today, designers, marketers, need to fix something that this world created in many, many years before. We are trying to make products that are more sustainable, healthier, brands that are more purposeful. We're trying to fix a system that was playing with different kind of rules. Now it's different. Why is different? And I close. I know my answers are always very long. Why is different? Because today, the big barriers to entry made of scale of production, communication, and distribution that these companies were building in the past are crumbling down under the winds of globalization, digitization, new technologies. Anybody can come up with an idea, get funding, the cost of manufacturing is going down, and then you go to compete with the big brands through e-commerce and selling through e-commerce and building your ecosystem of communication through social media. So in this way, the big and the small are left with just one option: refocusing everything on people, putting people at the center of everything, human at the center of everything, and being obsessed with the creation of value for them. And that's why a culture that is typical for the design world needs now to permeate the marketing world, the business world in general. We need marketers, before anything else, before trying to build a business, to grow a business, to think, I need to create something phenomenal for the people I serve, for the consumers, the customers, and for the world, for the planet, for the society we live in.
I've talked to a few people this week for the podcast, and one of the things we've talked about is marketers maybe losing sight of the customer, the consumer, the end user, and it's either not talking to them enough or not understanding them enough. Do you see that, or do you see it differently?
Look, I think, you always think the past is better than the present. Already Socrates, thousands of years ago, was talking about, the previous generation was better than this one. It's always like this. I think the marketing today actually is better than marketing 20, 30 years ago, simply because they are forced to think about the people we serve in a better way than in the past. Because the competition is more aggressive. You have a proliferation of new brands, small brands, that are really good at focusing on those needs. They don't have many constraints that the big companies have in the industry, driven by scale, first of all. And so they're so forced to understand people in a different way. How do they do it? By talking to them, by traditional ways, from focus group to quantitative research, but then more and more through data, through information we didn't have access in the past. Now, I also understand though why these marketers, these people told you these things in these days, because we're just scratching the surface. We should do so much more. We should sincerely fall in love with the people we serve. We should look at the people buying our products and thinking, okay, that person, that's Beatrice, that's my daughter, that's my mom, that's my father, that's my best friend, that's my significant other. And be like, would I give it to them? And not just the product, but what would I tell them to convince them to buy this product? Would I be authentic, honest, or would I fool them? So that's what I talk about. When we talk about human centricity, is the love for the people you serve that push you to come over all kind of constraints and all kind of problems that you face in the short term. The fact that at the end of the day, you need to bring results quarter by quarter. So you don't change industries or companies or products and brands from night to day.
No.
It's a long-term project. And that's why even if you are a marketer, you're a designer, you're somebody in a company, you know that you're going to be in that position for a couple of years and then you will rotate. Even in that case, your plan needs to be a multi-year plan. Even if you're not going to be there, getting the results of what you're working on, because you don't care. There is your career, but you think that your career is connected to doing good for the world, for the people you serve, and knowing that by doing that, and by doing that in a sustainable way with a long-term vision, you will build real, sustainable financial value for your company. We are in the moment in history, for the first time in modern history of business, where financial value is finally meeting human value. In the past, it was not like this. You could create financial value with mediocrity in your portfolio, not creating the ideal human value. Today, creating human value is your best competitive advantage, but it's driven not just by a strategy, short term, oh, let's do this. It's driven by culture. It's driven by people that profoundly believe in this, and it takes time.
Yeah, you're very commercial, and I mean that I don't mean that in a bad way, right? I mean it it's a very interesting thing, and again, all the stuff I've read even before meeting you and listened to today, I wanted to ask you about that. And was there a moment in time where you kind of clicked? I mean, you talked about learning that in college, but like in your working world.
Absolutely. Look, I was a naive designer. You go to school, they teach you to design these amazing products and brands and package and communication. And then you go to these companies and you're like, okay, they probably invest all their money in designing the best possible product. And then they try to promote them. And then I realized that the world was completely different.
Right.
The amount of money that this company invests in promoting stuff was by blowing compared to the money you invest in creating the products, in evolving the products. Obviously, it changes by industry. In pharma or in some industry where you need a heavy investment is different. But in general, in the mass market at least, that was the first aha moment. I was like, wait a second. There is a gap here that I don't understand. I often say, I don't know the latest data, but in 2019, the spending in global advertising marketing was $628 billion. I don't know today. Maybe you have the data. I don't know. But these are, it's for sure more than that. So imagine if we will take all the money and we'll put everything in evolving the products, in creating the best products and services and experiences for people to really better the life of people. Now, this is a provocation in the marketing podcast, but should we think about that? Should we use the body the different way instead of screaming to each other, communicating, our brands, my brand is better than yours. Should we have the products told by themselves? I don't know, it's almost utopic, but that was the first aha moment. Now, why I became, as you say, commercial? Because I realized that I was speaking Japanese to people that would talk English.
Okay.
My design language was not understandable. I also realized at a certain point that even my design language was not anymore a design language, and it became the language of human centricity and love. So that was an interesting step because I started to change language both with the business community and also with the design community. And I started to talk about love, human centricity on one side. So it was not just about the designer trying to push design. The purpose of design is so much higher than that. And when you understand that the purpose is human centricity, then it becomes relevant to so many other communities.
Right.
But then I understood that I needed to link that to what was really relevant to any company in the world, small or big. There was the creation of business value. And so I started to link love with productivity, effectiveness with human centricity. And that's where things started to change.
To click,
But
yeah.
you see, it's about talking the right language, understanding. I learned it at school, in my own design world when they told me that I needed to talk the language of science, of engineering, of marketing, of finance to connect with them and develop products. Then I realized there was so much more than that.
Yeah, and how do you then instill that now in the teams that you have? And I know you've a huge team across the world. I want to ask you about that as well because it's a slightly different thing. But how do you create that culture within your team for them?
Well, first of all, it's not easy. You said it, we have 370 designers and growing in 17 locations around the world, every continent. We have a design team. And therefore, imagine the diversity. Even just in one location, in New York, we have 36 different nationalities just in the design center in New York City. So it all started with having a dream, having a purpose, coming to PepsiCo and thinking, okay, I love you, PepsiCo. I'm grateful for the opportunity you are giving me. But what I love even more is the platform I'm having to reach billions of people and try to change not just a company, but an industry for good. Creating, products that are more sustainable, healthier, more beautiful, more convenient, building value in a variety of different ways and knowing that this is a long-term game.
Yeah.
This is not something you do from night to day. And knowing at the beginning it was just myself, that I couldn't do it by myself. And so the first thing, you have the dream, and then you start to share this dream. You storytell this dream. How? At the beginning, I didn't have any resource, so I started to do it with my own social media, in LinkedIn, in Instagram especially. And it's interesting, if I look at LinkedIn, how the authenticity of my messages, this blend of, the real dream, people by now understand that the dream is real, of creating a better world. Blended with my private life, talking about my family. Blended with ideas that I have that transcend PepsiCo. Blended with many projects that we do at PepsiCo that try to embody that idea. All of this has been growing. My followers, we're up, 85, 90,000 followers. Spontaneously, organically, with these posts that often are written in a broken English, but it's interesting because people smell authenticity and they love dreams and they love kind people that have real dream and are trying to do the right thing. So that's the first thing, because now we talk about LinkedIn, but it's how I attracted many talents that were sharing the same dream.
Okay.
By the way, it's important because you attract talents that share that kind of dream. You don't attract talents that don't.
Yes.
So you attract dreamers. You attract people that want to change the world. And then you need to embody, those behaviors every time. And what I did, and I close, there are many things that I could mention, but one very important, I wrote the list of all these different characteristics that the ideal innovators in our organization should have.
Okay.
I call them the unicorns.
Yes.
These people are the unicorns. 24 different characteristics. I started to talk in conferences about them. I wrote papers about them, articles, and then more recently, I wrote them in the book. That book, 2/3 of the book is about the 24 different characteristics of these innovators with tons of examples. And then you need to embody them. If you write them in a book, you need to demonstrate them. And there is nobody that has them all to the extreme. Else you will be a unicorn, but unicorns don't exist. And so that means that starting with myself, I do an effort every single day to try to be the best version of myself. The most kind person, the most optimistic, the most resilient, the most visionary, the best at the execution. All those different characteristics. I'm not the best of those things, but I do my best to try to better and better myself every day on those areas.
I loved reading about the unicorns, and you also you talk about people who, when I was reading it, I was like, they're like dream killers. They're the people that that's childish. Be more concrete, more pragmatic, and you at PepsiCo, you went and you found, which was you call it co-conspirators, the people that actually almost share the dream. So it was almost like there are dream killers, but do you not ignore them, but you're kind of go, okay, you're there, but I'm going to find the co-conspirators to help this grow.
Well, this kind of approach is the typical approach of the optimistic person, right? The optimist. And in fact, optimism is one of the characteristics of these unicorns is, in life, in society, and therefore in any company of the world, the most of the people protect the status quo. Is really at the base of the Maslow pyramid of needs. Safety. Okay. You protect the status quo. It's human nature. So you know that in general, 9% out of 10 will reject your new idea, your new approach, what you're trying to do that is different from the status quo. This is statistic, it's not my stats, it's 9 people out of 10. So your mission is, first of all, do not get demotivated by 90% of the people that will tell you your dream is crazy, it's childish.
Yeah.
Because it's normal. If you have a dream, that's what is going to happen. If you try to change the world, that's what is going to happen. Go look for the 10%, that 1% out of 10. They're out there. They're like you. They're like you. And ideally, they are in a different position. If you're a designer, they are in marketing. They are in R&D. If you're a marketer, maybe it's a CEO. You need a team of co-conspirators that you can partner with to do something very powerful, to prototype your ideas, to build proof points. They don't need to be perfect. They need to show progress. They need to show value. The more value you show, the more people will start to believe. They will knock your door and they will tell you, I want to be part of this.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, yeah, come. And then you will also tell them, but I need your commitment. I need you to invest in this. I need you to believe in this. When I was looking for the co-conspirators, both at 3M in my previous company, and then when I arrived in PepsiCo, the co-conspirator is not easy to find. Because, there are 5 phases I went through.
Yeah.
First at 3M to build the design culture in the company. And then when I joined PepsiCo, I remember sharing these 5 phases, both with Indra Nooyi, the CEO of the company back then, and Bray Jackman, the president of Global Beverage, that was hiring me. The first one is what I call the denial, when a company doesn't understand that it needs to change. If you keep not understanding that you need to change and the world is changing around you, you end up like Blockbuster, Kodak, a variety of different brands that are not what they used to be, or eventually they even disappear today. But then sooner or later, it needs to be somebody with the right power and resources, so usually the CEO or somebody close to the CEO, understands that you need to drive a change and tries to change.
Yeah.
In the case of 3M, starting really from the beginning, this EVP of the consumer business in the US, Dr. Monosari, understood that we needed to change, together with a co-conspirator of his, that was the head of corporate communication in Italy. And so they hired this kid that was 27 to run design in one of the 6 divisions of the company, and just in Europe. So consumer business in Europe. So I get hired as soon as possible. I go to the United States to meet all these important people, stakeholders in R&D, marketing, and strategy, blah, blah, blah. So I start to pitch my idea of design. If you see a little bit of passion now in my voice, imagine the passion of me 20 years ago. I mean, even more, 25 years ago. I was a volcano. And so people loved it. I thought that they loved it. Everybody excited, they had super conversations, and they were like, let's go for dinner tonight, let's have drinks. And I was like, wow. So I go to Dr. Monosari, that was my sponsor. I go to his office, and I remember the first trip, and they tell him, Dr. Monosari is amazing, everybody is embracing this idea of design. It's going to be so much easier than what we were thinking to change the company, with design, blah, blah. And Dr. Monosari was always a serious person. That day was more serious than ever. He looks at me very serious, like, Mauro, everybody is lying to you. I'm like, But no. I mean, inside me, I'm thinking, Mo, you just don't get it. I mean, I was there. I have a lot of empathy, EQ. I feel people. I understand people. But I tell you, Dr. Nosari, respectfully, I was in the room. You were, no, but really, you have to see. And he's like, I'm telling you that they're all lying to you. And then he explained with a metaphor. He told me, imagine you are in an art gallery and you have a beautiful painting in front of you and you love the painting to death and you have your pockets full of money. What do? You buy the painting. Well, Mauro, you in design, you are one of the paintings in the 3M art gallery. And nobody's buying you. Nobody's buying you. But they're buying other paintings. And what he meant is he gave the money to those people. He gave the budget to his team. And he knew that they were investing the money, not in design, but in the next HR project, in the next plant, in the next advertising campaign. There was a big aha moment for me. I realized back then that something very practical. First of all, the people lie to you. But they don't lie because they're mean. They lie maybe because they're uncomfortable destroying your dreams.
To protect you.
To protect you from, or just because, maybe because you have a good sponsor and they don't want to go against your sponsor. There are many reasons why people are uncomfortable telling you the truth. You know, there are seminars and books written about the importance of feedback. Feedback is so important, real, transparent feedback. Anyway, people don't give authentic feedback. So you need to start from that assumption. So I developed a very practical and easy technique to get that feedback. When somebody is like, oh, I love your idea, I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it tomorrow. Give me the money. Let's invest. Give me the people. And then, just then, you find out who is with you and who is not. And you will find out that the most of the people will not be with you. They will tell you, yeah, I love your idea, but let's do it next time, next project, next year, next semester. Now is not the right time. It's perfectly fine. I need to find the co-conspirators. So again, I call this second phase the phase of hidden rejection. And the third phase instead is the occasional leap of faith. When you find a co-conspirator that is willing to invest in you, in your idea. And again, you start to build proof points, more people will come. When they come, you tell them, give me the money. Invest. If they invest, they are real co-conspirators, and you build more proof points. And then you start to scale up. And briefly, you go to the fourth phase, that is the quest for confidence. From startup, you move to a scale-up organization, business. In our case, is the scale-up of designing PepsiCo. I call it quest for confidence because in the scale up is when you start to lose confidence. Because it's easier at the beginning to have confidence in something that is small. You have a lot of pirates and pioneers and you move, not respecting the rules. When you need to scale up, you need to start putting rules, processes, empowerment and delegation, and it becomes difficult and you risk to lose entrepreneurship, love, that kind of drive. And usually often you kill the startup. The startup could be a real business, a real startup, or the startup of your capability in that phase. So you need the confidence to keep going that you build through teamwork and really leveraging each other and protecting the love. If you do that, then you move to holistic awareness. That is the fifth phase, is when your culture is there, arrives there, but even that should be just a starting point for something bigger and bigger.
Yeah, because it's almost now you have the thing you need to do what you need to do. And I was reading through those 5 steps, and look, I've been through probably those stages in a very different way and I learned a lot from reflecting kind of back of where maybe I went wrong. And I had all those discussions, people went, this is great, love this idea, I love this idea. It's just not the right time. And, you get defeated. And so actually for anybody in any role, I think those 5 stages are so important. And, finding the co-conspirators and kind of not ignoring the dream killers, because I think you have to hear what they're saying to understand.
And respect them.
Yeah.
I met people in my life that focused just on people that they thought were superstars. And everybody else, let's say 10% superstars, 90% morons. I don't want to have anything to do with you. You're a disaster. If you have that kind of mindset, it's the perfect recipe for disaster. You're not going to survive in companies. First of all, because you need the 100% of the company with you.
Yeah.
But second, because it's not that these people, because they're not believing your idea, because they're not investing in your idea, they're not, first of all, they're not good human beings, first, just as a reminder. But then also, it doesn't mean they're not good business leaders and good business people. It's just that they have a different mindset. Eventually, therefore, we'll have a different role in these companies.
Yeah.
If we had companies just made of those 10% of those innovators, I don't know if we'll have companies of the size of PepsiCo and many others, companies at that scale able to operate with that kind of efficiency.
Yeah.
You need a good mix of all these people within this organization.
100%. Yeah, if we're all the same, it's terribly boring as well. You talked there about the scale of PepsiCo. Like, it is a huge company with so many different brands under your remit, and you said huge team. I'm really interested, and I previously worked in kind of international marketing roles, and I'm fascinated by how you approach the internationalization of some of the brands and really taking into account the local nuances and culture and maybe transcreation of the work that you do. How do you approach that, and what's your views on it?
Look, I've been working for 23 years in American companies. And even before, I was working from Italy in a Dutch company. The beginning, Italy, Dutch company, then 7 years, American company in Italy. So for 7 years, I was there in Italy with a global role. And I could see both perspectives.
Yeah.
I could see my fellow Italians, the colleagues that were working just on the Italian business, complaining about the strategies that were arriving top-down from America.
Yeah.
And they were trying to be local, but they were totally lost in the nuances. It was the explosion of the stereotype. When you try to understand, there are many American movies, made in Italy, talking about Italy, that are so full of stereotypes.
Yeah.
Oh, the hills of Tuscany and the pizza and the beautiful guy that arrives and all that dolce vita, stereotypes. And Italy is not like this anymore. But so the difference, yes, there is still Tuscany in the hills. We still have great wine, and then we still have these guys like this. But it's how you tell the story. It's all the details. It's all the nuances that make the difference between foreigners trying to impose you their model and trying to be local, but they're totally unauthentic and fake. And instead, the right approach that is really, really authentic. In the meantime, though, I was also feeling for the Americans, so for the global team. I was part of the team. I was one of those that was trying to build these global strategies. And I could see a pushback from Italy, even when instead things made total sense. This famous not invented here syndrome.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized the importance of building a dialogue between the two dimensions. And I came up with this idea of we needed to be glocal. Globally strategic, locally relevant. Now, the only way to be glocal is by having local teams, global teams, totally connected with one another. So as an example, as soon as I joined PepsiCo, there was not a team. It was myself. I pitched the idea of building a team to Indra and to Brad, and we started to build the first group of 20 people in New York City. And then immediately after, I told them we need to build teams in the regions. I made this mistake in 3M. We didn't have them for years. When finally I started to put people in Taiwan, in China, in Japan, in America, because my team at the beginning was in Italy, it changed the game completely. Yeah. So we started to put people in China, a person. And it was amazing. At the beginning, the China business team didn't want to have anybody. Nobody wanted to have design at the beginning. Everybody was thinking it's the idea of Indra, okay, she wants to invest in it at the center, let them do it. Zero. At a certain point, though, Indra was like, you know what? I'm going to invest. I'm going to force them. She didn't invest. I'm going to force. She understood it was important. Okay. They committed. They put the money. I'm going to force them to hire one person. They did, and after 3 months, they hired spontaneously 5 more people.
Okay.
Because they saw right away the value. So what is the magic formula? You need people in the region, but they need to report directly to the center. So these people reported directly to me, not directly to somebody in the region. Then, though, I wanted them to report dotted line to somebody in the region as well.
Right.
So why this formula is important? Reporting directly to me, I control, first of all, the talent. I choose the talent. They are totally in line and aligned with the strategy, with intent, with the purpose. But then they're local. They become local. And so they understand totally the local nuances, the business culture in the subsidiary, in the country, the goals and everything. And I have the sponsor, the person they report dotted line to, that is accountable for the success of the person. So this person is not there bothering them. They're accountable. Is in their performance review. They need that person to be successful too. So this formula works very well because then this person acts as facilitators, connectors, translators. So many times we had global strategies that we thought made a lot of sense for the region. And then these people have been able to tell us, you know what, it's okay, but not completely okay. For China or for Brazil or for Japan, we need to tweak a few things. We need to modify. And they're totally empowered to do it. And usually this works very, very well.
Yeah, and it is those small nuanced things that you're not going to necessarily understand unless you know the market. I did stuff in Italy, and again, we hired a wonderful local marketing person, Marina Fantini, and again, it was knowing the right moment to do it, but then also the difference that she brought, like just that local knowledge, and it just brought it to the next level. And I think that's knowing the moment, getting the right person, all those things you talked about, like kindness, compassion, commerciality, amazing stuff. I have to, and we're going to run out of time. I could spend all day talking to you, but you have a lot of other things to do. I have to talk to you about the redesign of last year of Pepsi. I'm not saying this because you're here. I've talked about it. Not that it matters, but love it. Absolutely love it. It brought me back to kind of the classic for me. I was thinking Michael J. Fox. That's where it brought me to, and so maybe a bit of nostalgia for me at my age. But it was phenomenally successful as well. Tell me, what was it that kind of, you've talked about things taking time. This hasn't happened overnight. Was it 14 years since the last redesign or something? So why now? What was it that kind of you felt was the time was right?
Well, first of all, it is really loved by people. And then the first week we had, after launch, we have 7 billion impressions with 99% positive sentiment. That is pretty unusual for a brand so iconic. There is always people that love it and people that hate it. Instead, it was received very well. And not just from people of our generation that eventually remember the logo, in that kind of configuration in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, but also from people that were not even born back then.
Yeah.
And so somehow it's something that is working. There are multiple reasons for this redesign. First of all, when I joined the company in 2012, I inherited the previous design. It was just launched in the United States. It was launched in 2009. And the mission that I received from the company was the one of unifying the world around that logo and that design. Because the world was totally fragmented for us.
Okay.
Many countries didn't take the new logo, and even, country by country, there were different designs of the cans, the bottles. So first mission was to unify everybody. And as a designer usually does, instead of just saying, the CEO is saying that we should do it, I need to enforce this, and these are the guidelines, I try to understand why they were not embracing the logo and the design. I started to talk to bottlers, business leaders, consumers in the different regions, and I realized that the problem was there was not enough energy in the design.
Okay.
Compared to the previous designs that were really an explosion of energy overall. So the first thing we did was to tweak that design of 2009. We changed the blue, we made it more brilliant and saturated. We made the logo much bigger, so more energy. We changed slightly the typography of Pepsi to make it more bold. So we tried to infuse energy in it. We called the new visual identity system Big Bob Blue. It was a slight change, but enough to give energy and convince everybody to go with it. That was 2013. But I knew there was not enough.
Okay.
We needed more energy, but I couldn't change the logo back then. So inside myself, I started to think already then, what can we do next? What will be the next design? Wow. So every time we will do a limited edition packaging, an activation for Super Bowl or Champions League, or a cola house in New York, or a fashion collaboration, every time we were testing new ideas of what that logo could be, how much people were liking the logos from the past, what else could we do in the visual identity system. And so when the moment arrived, the strategic business reason that pushed us to actually change the logo was this new focus on zero sugar.
Okay.
You know, we really want as a company to push the zero sugar formulation, and the CEO was really driven by Ramon LaGuarta in premise. He decided that all the communication was going to be zero sugar. So the black that defines the zero sugar category was going to be the color on coolers, on fountains, on tracks, on everything, in communication. So now, to do that, we needed to understand what was going to be the carrier of the new strategy. And so we came up with this design where the logo is gigantic on the can. You actually focus on the logo, and you almost don't pay attention anymore on the color of the actual can, beyond the fact that it's a signifier of the formulation, of the flavors and everything. And then we built this visual identity system where for the first time we blend black and blue together with these poles that emanate from the can with full energy, the pace of music and fun, you know, the music and fun typical of Pepsi. So now Pepsi is not blue anymore, but the color of Pepsi is this blend of blue and black that signifies zero sugar. So a business strategy that is connected to a human insight, because we want to push that kind of formulation for people, is connected to, you know, it's been the catalyst of the decision to start officially a project that was in our mind for many years before.
And it does. I mean, it stands out. It is fantastic. When it came out, I was like, pops on the shelf, which is great news.
Thank you.
Well, listen, I know we are at time, and I really appreciate you stopping by. My last question is, you know, outside of all of this that you do and all the work that you do, how do you kind of maintain your energy? Because you've like such an incredible and infectious energy.
First of all, is the love for what you do. We talk multiple times about this in this conversation today. So that's really the starting point. There are many books written about this, statistic and data about this. If you love what you do, that will give you that energy, that resilience, that optimism to overcome any kind of barrier and always thinking, what's next? Then the second thing, I surround myself with people like this, with people that are real innovators, that really want to change the world in their own field. And it goes from musicians to artists, to people working in finance, to any kind of background, because innovation, creativity, energy, passion for what you do is transversal to any kind of discipline, is one of the major traits of the real innovators, the people that change the world. And you could change the world at scale, or you could change the world in your small community, in your family. But this is a trait that I really, really love. So I'm attracted by that kind of people. I surround myself with that kind of people. So even in days of low energy because something is going wrong, because it's a difficult day, you're facing a big complexity or a crisis in your life, you go out for dinner with these people, for lunch, you have a drink, a coffee, and it's an injection of energy. So surround yourself with people like this. It's so powerful.
And I'm sure your daughter and your baby that's on the way will give you lots of energy as well. Mauro, thank you so much for stopping by. I really genuinely appreciate it. You're definitely in the 10%, you know, of people that are lifting people up and doing this for me today. I really genuinely appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Mauro was so engaging. You could spend hours in his company and still look to hear more. I'd say he's a deadly dinner guest. Maybe he'll come to mind for some coddle next time he's in Ireland. You have to Google coddle if you don't know what that is. Mauro's story is not just about grand dreams. It's also about humble beginnings, the resilience required to expand those dreams into reality. Sharing his dream and storytelling have become Mauro's tools to align his team and the entire organization with the vision he has for PepsiCo. None of these things happen overnight. Mauro's insights offer a blueprint for leaders aiming to build globally diverse and cohesive teams. It's not easy to do the cohesive bit, I think. By starting with a dream, crafting a purposeful narrative, and embracing the diversity present within the team, Mauro's been able to forge a meaningful culture that drives both personal and industry impact. I think as his story reveals, it's not an overnight journey, but with Mauro's story is so inspiring. His family were the core to kind of his values that he's now living in maybe a different way to what his mom had hoped for. But as he said in the episode, she looks at him now and goes, that's the preaching, I wanted you to do. I wanted you to bring good kindness out into the world. And he certainly does it. And he leaves the room with you feeling better because he was in it. What a great thing to say about somebody. An absolute pleasure spend time with Mauro Porcini. Of course, join me next week for my episode with Jerry D'Angelo. Jerry's well known, obviously he retired last year, but ex-P&G, where he led a massive global media team. So really fascinating to hear insights into how he approached that. And he's an advisor now with many companies, so he obviously has lots of relevant insight to offer a great episode. And in the second part of the episode, I chat with Mark Noble from Heineken, and we chat about the incredible success of Pub Museum. Went home with an absolute rake load of can lines. So great to see that. So tune in next Tuesday. For me, your host, Conor Byrne, thanks so much for tuning in.